Welcome to the Epcotian Adventure,
a podcast where we'll talk about all things Disney,
including tips and tricks, festivals and favorites, and the very latest in news and reviews.
But we're still old enough to remember when every line was a standby line.
This is episode 27, the top 15 queues at Walt Disney World.
Or, waiting in line is half the fun. No, really.
So now, please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast as we embark on our Epcotian adventure. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 27 of the Epcotian Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And today we're talking about the top 15 queues at Walt Disney World. And yeah, standing in line.
I know.
How does that warrant a podcast episode?
But you know, if you've been there enough times, you also have your favorite queues. Go on, admit it.
Yeah, the favorite queues. There's favorite pre-shows. There's favorite things after the ride. I don't know. There's so much to do at Walt Disney World that just standing in line seems like it's a boring thing.
Well, we're waiting.
But in reality, the pre-shows and the queues for a lot of the attractions are attractions unto themselves.
Yeah, this is where Disney really sets itself apart. I mean, one of the many ways that Disney sets itself apart. Because if you're waiting in line for a ride at Six Flags, you're doing nothing but standing and waiting in line.
Yeah, you pass the same people in the switchbacks 50,000 times.
Which a lot of the queues that we're going to talk about you do too. But the difference is they're themed.
Yeah. There's actually stuff to do in the queues. Interactivity is something that Disney has started bringing into the queues over the last couple decades. And it's grown into games and things you can do on your phone. And we even discovered something the other day in the Peter Pan queue that was very hidden and intriguing. We'll talk about that in a bit.
But I want to go all the way back to Disneyland, even before this new technology where things were interactive. Even way, way back when you're talking about opening day attractions, the queues weren't interactive, but there was something to see everywhere you looked. You never would look back behind something and there wasn't something that was not themed. You'd never look back and see a pile of cords or look back and see something that wasn't painted, either to blend in so that you weren't focusing on it, or that told part of the story. Disney's just always been really, really good at this, and incorporating the cues into the storytelling of the attraction is just another level that they take their theming to.
Yeah, and it's actually become part of the ride. Things like Rise of the Resistance, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. The queue is actually so interactive, it feels like it's actually part of the attraction. The attraction starts the minute you get in line, and I love that.
Now, we are stretching this a little bit because if you're looking at a wait time for an attraction, if the wait time says there's 40 minutes to wait, Disney stops that clock when the pre-show starts. So at that point, they're considering the pre-show part of the ride and not part of the queue. For our purposes today, we are putting that in the other direction. So we are actually including the pre-show as part of our ranking for the queue. And let's also just specify that we are not doing our own separate lists. We compiled this of our own favorites. We're not taking other people's opinions into this, like things that we've seen on websites or whatever. This is just our opinion. We both compiled our lists, compared them, made a few concessions here and there to get our numbers in line. But this is a list that we have compiled together. So we're just going to share these. Rod, do you want to take odds or evens?
Oh, I'll take odds.
All right. Let's start us off with 15.
Number 15, Flight of Passage, over at Disney's Animal Kingdom in the Navi area, basically. The Flight of Passage is the large theater attraction where you are flying through the Valley of Moira on back of a Banshee. The queue enters in through a large cavern-like entrance. I love this. This goes back to when me and my friend Lynn went to Carlsbad Caverns and walked down into the caverns, and I looked at Lynn and said, "This is the entry for an attraction. This is awesome." And he's like, It's a hole in the ground. That said, when
That
we
sounds
walked
like Lynn.
in, yeah, that does sound like Lynn. When we walked into Flight of Passage that very first time, it brought back that memory, and I was like, oh my gosh, they actually built something like this. But I love Flight of Passage's queue because it meanders, and it has very, very good storytelling leading into the attraction, where you see the original bad guys that came in, and the new good guys came in and took over, and you see how it goes from industrial to environmental, and you have Hank in the Tank, the Na'vi that's floating in the goo. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be in there. It's water, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good...
But there's a lot of really interesting storytelling elements in the queue. Now, the reason it falls down to 15, in my opinion, is it's just so stinking long.
It is so long.
If you have a after-hours party or something going on and you're there and you're able to ride the attraction, you still have to walk through 15 miles of queue to finally get to the ride. I love interactivity, I love theming and storytelling, but this one just feels like you have to walk forever to get to the attraction.
It does, and that's one thing that we actually enjoy in a queue. Like Rod said, that it meanders, but there's a limit.
Yeah, there needs to be ways to cut off big portions of queue if there's nobody standing there.
Which is the benefit of those stanchion ones, that you can just reclip a chain and you have a shorter queue.
Right.
You cannot do that at Flight of Passage. But it is gorgeous, and it deserves a spot on the list for sure. Also, big shout out to the Imagineers on this one, knowing it was going to be a long queue and putting a bathroom in the middle of the queue.
The only queue at Disney World that has a restroom in the queue. Why? Why
Brilliant.
is Rise of the Resistance not have that?
Yeah, they should for sure. Guardians should have had one. There's just some of those that you know are going to be longer queues. Come on, Disney. Step it up. Look to Flight of Passage.
All right, moving on.
Number 14. We're going to go over to Magic Kingdom for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. This is another one that is famously long. This is a very long queue. It has long waits all the time, mainly just because it's a low-capacity ride and it's still new.
However, it is another one of those meandering queues. So we actually like this one because it meanders through the trees and it has the fans with the misters on them. So
We love that.
when you're outside, you do have some of that coolness blown on you, which is nice.
It is very nice. It really does make a huge difference. And just having those pretty trees there with the setting of Snow White's house and the mine that you're going to go into is just really, really nice. You can't underestimate the power of shade at Disney World.
Trees are a beautiful thing when it comes to Disney World.
But we also love that this one does have some of that interactive element that we were talking about. Once you enter into the indoor portion of the queue, there are barrels all around. If you spin the thing inside the barrel, there's a little thing that you can spin around. And if you do, it's going to light up a dwarf on the top of, or on the ceiling.
Yeah.
So if you can convince enough people in the queue to spin the barrels at the same time, you'll end up with all 7 dwarfs. And if you get all 7 dwarfs, Snow White also appears. It's the only time she appears, and she's dancing with the dwarves. It is super cute. Is it worth waiting 2 hours in a queue for that? Not so much, but
if you're going to have to wait 2 hours, at least you have something to do.
That's the thing. See, when you're waiting anyway, give us something to do. Give us something cute to look at.
This queue, like some of the others we're going to talk about, have a if you know kind of moment in it with the spinning barrels. We're going to talk about a few more of those as we go along, but there are a few queues that have some surprises in them that if you listen to our podcast or other podcasts, you'll find out about. So let's keep looking at those. Number 13, Star Tours. Now this one's at the bottom of the list. It's still one of our favorites because it has the droids, it has the ships, it has the nostalgia factor, and it has been updated with the newer version of Star Tours. However, you stand there a long time waiting for the lightning lane to go through, so you stand in those first 2 rooms very long. I like it when there's more of a meander and more of a storytelling that goes on room to room to room to room. Star Tours, going back as many years as it does, is a great queue, but it's still, I don't know, you just tend to stand there a long time hearing the same thing over and over and over again. So long now with Lightning Lane that sometimes you hear it go all the way through the loop before you get to room 2. Minor detail, but we had to put it somewhere in the list.
It had to be on the list. I love this queue just because of my nerdy little heart who loves Star Wars. So this definitely made the list for me. My original list had it a little bit higher. Talking about different elements we negotiated, and it took the R13 spot. But just the Kuchana, I love that.
Picky indoor, blah, 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 blah,
I love it. And listening to K-Droid.
I want to weld your hand.
It's so cute. And this was one of the ones when we've said before that we were at Disneyland for opening day of Star Tours. And the first time we went through, we ran through it because we were on the second Star Speeder route ever. We didn't wait to see anything. So we purposely rode it later so that we could see the queue, and it was mind-blowing in its day. The level of detail that was there. And it doesn't even compare to what's there now. They've upgraded it so much, but it's just, I love the detail. I love all the nerdy little elements. It just makes me happy.
And this is another one of those ones that if you are in the exterior queue, if you're outside, it's very shaded. It's also made to look like a movie set. So there's a giant, I'm going to say it wrong, AT-AT?
It is an AT-AT.
I got it right. Hey, look at that. I got my nerdy side on. There's a giant AT-AT out there, and it looks like the original Studios was supposed to look, so it looks like a film set. But
it
there's
looks
actually,
like the Ewok Village.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's something to look at. And again, it kind of helps tell the story prior to going inside the building.
And for those of you who missed everything he just said because you're correcting me and not saying that it's an AT-AT, it is in fact an AT-AT. It is not an AT-AT. They do go on to make AT-STs later, and that is AT-ST. But AT-AT is AT-AT, and you can look it up on the George Lucasfilm website. And I will die on this hill.
All right,
And don't edit that out.
I would not ever edit that out. Let's move on to number 12.
So number 12. Number 12 we're giving to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Now,
also there at the studios.
Yes,
yeah.
Also at Studios. One of the newer attractions. They didn't do a ton to this queue to change it from what it used to be for the Great Movie Ride. They actually kind of did less to it because there used to be movie props in there and stuff.
Well, and you used to have that large series of switchbacks in front of the movie theater screen.
Yes.
Which is now that's now further into the attraction. So Mickey and Minnie's is a little lower on our list because it has such a long exterior queue with nothing to do, nothing to look at, except run back and forth and watch people go back and forth. That's about it.
Yeah. So where this one really picked up some ground was the pre-show. And the pre-show is short, but that song is addictive and goofy. Well, it's not Goofy's fault, actually. But the train blowing the hole in the wall that you then walk through is so fun. It's such a fun, unexpected element, and they just do it so, so well.
And I'm a sucker for a good pre-show. And so some of these queues you're going to notice we just talk about the pre-show only because that really is the queue in our opinion. Everything else is just standing in line.
Right.
Being able to actually walk through the screen into the attraction is one of the best show beginnings of any attraction at Walt Disney World, in my opinion.
It is so fun and it's so cute.
Yeah, and therefore that attraction did make the list for one of the best queues, even though most of the queue is outside. So that was kind of a coin flip if that one was going to make it, but the pre-show
The pre-show sold it for sure. And when you ride this the next time, when you exit, look behind you because you are exiting through the same hole, which is really, really cute.
Number 11, back over at Magic Kingdom, is Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid. Now this one is also a very kind of a long exterior queue, but it's another one that just meanders through the rockwork down into the caves. And this one has some really fun interactive elements. As you go through, if the line's long enough, because a lot of times you walk right past this, there are little built-in shelves, I guess you could look like. They're video screen, but they're little shelves with crabs walking back and forth, and they're holding up things that they found. There's actually some instructions on how to do this. But
there are. You wave a certain direction, and it tells the crab whether to keep the object or to throw it away.
Right, exactly.
But they're very, very cute. And it's super fun, and anyone can do it. Little kids can do it and everything. So
yeah, so this one is really in our list because of the interactivity of the queue. Also, there's some hidden features that I just love. So once a year on Mickey's birthday, The sun hits just right at a certain time, and you can see a hidden Mickey appear on a wall with 3 different beams of light. It's really cool.
And you have to be there at just the right time. I want to say it's at noon. I would have to actually look that up, and I'm sorry that I didn't do that ahead of time. This last year, it actually was a little foggy that day, so it was very, very hard to see. When the sun is out and bright and being its Florida self, you can see it crystal clear, and it's super cute. There's also another hidden Mickey in this one that's kind of famous because it was very carefully curated by Imagineers, and it is a full-body Steamboat Willie Mickey, and it's created through different rocks and spaces between rocks, and there's about 5 different elements that you have to be standing at the right angle to see it. This is as you leave the attraction. Ask one of the cast members to point it out for you. It is pretty spectacular. Once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it, but it's hard to find if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's another one of those if you know moments.
Exactly.
And there's also a little rock nautilus, because where this attraction is sits on where the old 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea lagoon used to be. So they put a little nod to the nautilus.
And also, I just want to say that this queue, just even without those interactive and hidden elements, is just a beautiful queue. I just think it's gorgeous. So moving into the top 10. Number 10, we are giving to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Magic Kingdom. This is another one of those that we enjoy because it meanders. You're not just in switchbacks, so you're not just seeing the same 3 people over and over again.
Yeah, they managed to make quite a maze out of the switchbacks that they have in there, which I just love. And it's interactive now. They've actually put in some interactive elements. And they brought it into the SEA lore, which
we
I love.
So the Society for Explorers and Adventurers has residence there. They have some history there. We'll do an episode about all of that at some point, but just know that it's part of the story now.
But the mine owner, if you take a look at him, looks very much like an Imagineer we all know. Looking at you, Tony Baxter.
And there's also, if you are in the standby queue, you will come across a portrait of 2 Old West outlaws in a wanted poster who may look familiar if you're familiar with the Apple Dumpling Gang. So I'll post a picture of that. It's really, really cute.
The other reason I love it, though, too, is because the end of the attraction is right there outside the queue. So you keep seeing the coaster come past, and you kind of build that anticipation of getting on the ride. It's a warmer queue, but there is a lot of fans in there, too, to keep you cool during the summertime. But Thunder is just one of those ones that kind of hits the nostalgia buttons, I think, for Sue and I as well. It's just a loved coaster for us. Number 9, Frozen Ever After. Now, this is one of those beautiful interior queues and horrible exterior queues. It's going to stand outside in the heat in one long line that goes all the way out and around the corner and back, but once you're inside, the queue itself is absolutely stunning. They've done a fantastic job making it look like a little village. You go through Oaken's trading post, where you can actually see Oaken and his family in the steam room.
Woohoo! Big summer blowout!
However, it's not in our top of the list simply because you stand there forever. Lightning Lane is just a killer on this attraction, and by the time you get inside, you can still have a 45 to 60 minute wait inside in a very pretty queue, but you see the same people for a long time.
This is one of those, the interior is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the lights that are strung up through the village and the cobblestones and the little houses, and it's just so pretty and so immersive, and I love it. But when we were talking about how you do the switchbacks over and over, this is exactly what we're talking about that we don't like. It's so deceptive, for one thing, because you go, oh, hey, the ride loads right there. I can see load. Oh, no, just kidding. We're going to wind you around 97 times before you get there.
And it's still all in that same one scene until you finally go through Oaken's.
Yes.
So this kind of does fall into what I was saying before, where I like to go from scene to scene to scene in a queue. This one does not hit that point because it's all in that one room, mostly, for most of the time.
And that room is gorgeous, but enough. All right, so number 8.
Ooh, this one's going to make a lot of people unhappy.
Number 8, we're going to stay at Epcot, and we are giving number 8 slot to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
What?
Yeah, it's true.
How is that not number 1?
Because it's not.
Because it's not.
Well,
It is, but it's not. And let's talk about that.
First of all, let's just address the elephant in the room.
Virtual queue. Please, 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 please go away.
The virtual queue. It's a virtual queue.
It's a virtual queue. It shouldn't be a virtual queue any longer, but
We
it
were-
is a virtual queue.
We were so hoping that when Tron came on the grid,
Hey, I like
See
that.
what I did?
That's good.
that Cosmic Rewind would be taken off of the virtual, so that if you haven't experienced this, you have to join the virtual queue at 7 a.m. If you miss that, it's gone within seconds, literal seconds. If you miss the 7 a.m. slot, then you have to do it at 1 p.m. There's no opportunity to just stand in line. You can't just go, oh, it's a 60-minute wait. It's worth it. We're going to do it.
Well, and even with the virtual queue, once you get inside the building, which is a gorgeous queue inside, because of Lightning Lane again, you stand in that first room forever.
Forever.
But it is great. There's stuff to look at up top with the galaxies flying by, and then 2 separate pre-shows. This
Love the
one
pre-shows.
hits all of the right notes.
Yes.
And if you've been on the attraction, you know what I'm talking about. This is a beautiful queue inside.
And it sets up the story so well.
It really does. I love the part where they're interviewing Peter.
Oh my gosh.
And he's talking about the attractions at Epcot that aren't there, and nobody
yes,
can bother
and he can't wait to
tell him.
ride
Yeah.
Horizons again.
Poor guy.
Poor Peter.
But it
But-
just, for some reason, it just, when we were talking about this and trying to rank these, it fell lower in the list because of the virtual queue. It just makes it harder to
It makes it harder to love.
love. Yeah.
So it did fall a couple spots on our list, but we still love it. And it's super fun. It's super cute. And we love the pre-show, even though he says Epcotian and not
Yeah.
Epcotian.
Dude, it's Epcotian.
We'll forgive him.
Oh, well. Okay, number 7. Going back to pre-shows. This is number 7 because of the pre-show. Muppets 3D over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now, again, this is one of the older attractions, and that pre-show has been there since opening. And I will wait through an entire show of the actual attraction to see the pre-show from start to finish. It's that much fun.
We find a spot to sit along the wall, along the prop crates that are lining the room.
Underneath the net full of Jell-O.
Net full of jello.
Net full of Jell-O. See, it's a pun. Ah.
Oh my gosh, the crates and the boxes and everything that's in that room, every single thing is a joke or a pun or some sight gag. So next time you're in there, take a look around, but don't miss what's happening on the screens, because the screens, we quote this pre-show literally on a daily basis.
What kind of foolishness would you like to see?
There's so many good moments to this. Too bad they had to go and spoil it with a pig.
Yeah. Yeah. Muppets
mean,
is, again, one of those things we grew up with, so
That's
it's
actually in the
higher on our
attraction.
list. What was that?
My line that I
Oh,
just
that
said
is
actually
in the attraction. That's
attraction.
right. But see, that's how good the pre-show is we think of it as part of the actual attraction. There
Yeah.
is a little bitty exterior queue, and it's just one long switchback. So here the queue is really not the reason it's number 7. It's the pre-show. Because the pre-show 9 times out of 10 is all you're ever going to see of the
Yep.
queue. It usually does not have a line.
And rightfully so, because it is just like a 15-minute. Is it even 15 minutes? 12?
12 to 15 minutes, and it has a large volume in that theater. So
It does.
even on a busy day, you may only wait one show.
And a lot of people walk right past this. It's been there forever, and people don't realize that it's there. But you'll see the courtyard that has the fountain with Miss Piggy, and right behind it is this amazingly funny, family-friendly, sit down in the AC, super funny show. So don't miss this one. If you like the Muppets at all, or you like humor, or you like air conditioning, go see the show.
When you walk in, go to the right-hand side and look at the security desk, and look for the key.
It tells you where it is.
Hint,
Just find it.
It's under the mat.
But it's super fun. So don't miss this one. But that pre-show is what made this list for us. Number 6, we're going to hop over to Animal Kingdom now. And this one is Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain.
This is another one of those meandering queues, which I adore because you're not having to pass people 15 times. However, it is outside, so it's a little further down the list. So
part of it is.
It's a little warm. However,
but the
interior
part that's
portions,
outside, though, let's just talk about that because it is stunning. The architecture and the
Yeti statues,
and the little shrines, and even just the cracked cement and the windows, and like every single piece of this is just stunning. I absolutely love this queue.
The parts that are inside 4Q.
Yeah, well, 4Q too.
Oh, how rude. The interior parts of this queue actually are more like a museum as you're going through. There's actual things from Tibet that are from the search for the Yeti.
We are big fans of Josh Gates. If you've ever watched his show on the Discovery Channel.
Expedition Unknown.
We absolutely love him. And there's a relief of a footprint. Is that what it's called? A casting of a footprint that he found on one of his adventures to go search for the Yeti, and they have the casting of it in the queue for this ride.
Yeah, it's amazing. It actually, you're standing in line looking at this stuff going, oh, that's neat, not realizing that
it's real.
90% of the stuff that is in there is real.
It's very, very cool. And it puts a whole different spin on the ride when you know that you're looking at stuff that people have actually gone up the mountain to find. It's really neat.
A lot of the props that you see in the queue and in the store that look like sleeping bags and tents and things were actually, a lot of them were from Everest. My favorite part of the entire queue, though, is right as before you get onto the attraction, you pass what look like posters.
Like travel
posters, for services that you can purchase going up the mountain. You'll notice if you have your Magic Band on, though, you might see your name on one of the two of these posters. It's kind of cool.
It is very cool. I got to see mine on there once. I think it was the River Sioux, and it was very cool since I spell it a little bit different. It was very recognizable, and that was really fun. I also love that it helps tell the story, like we've been talking about. We love queues that tell a story. And this one is split a little bit differently. That is just a fun element, so that if you are going through the standby queue, you have to go through the travel office. You have to go through the ticketing office because you don't have a ticket yet. If you go through the Fast Pass, then you already have a ticket to get up the mountain, and you bypass that. So that's kind of a fun way to include a Fast Pass line that helps tell the story.
Another one of those if you know moments.
Yeah, so take a second and notice that the next time you go through it. It's really neat.
Number 5, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. This is over at the studios and is one of the most well-known scary queues, I think, in the whole entire resort, in that it not only helps tell the story, it is the story. As you finally get into the hotel, you'll notice the crashed elevators. You go through a room where the Twilight Zone basically sucks you in to the story. You have no way of escaping the Twilight Zone. It is absolutely brilliant how they've even brought the music from the outside queue into the interior queue and then into the part of the queue where you're about to go on the elevator. It gets progressively darker. And if you even look at the signboards right before you go into one of the two pre-shows, you'll notice that there are some letters that have dropped to the bottom that actually spell out a very ominous message. Ask the cast members. They will happily show you.
Absolutely. And even before you get into that lobby area, this place outside with all of the cracks and
the fountain, yeah.
The fountain that doesn't work anymore, and the things that you can see had this beautiful, glamorous Hollywood touch to it that is just faded and neglected. And it's something that Disney does really well, is making things tell a story even in their silence.
Yeah, through aging and through dilapidation, which is on purpose. The Haunted Mansion does that very well, too.
And it's very, very purposeful. It's so neat. And they finally turned the misters back on, which we're a big fan of. So that is also adding to the atmosphere, and it makes you a little cooler when you're in that outdoor portion.
This one simply didn't hit the top of the list because the exterior part of the queue is really hot.
It's
You're
hot.
out in the gardens, and it's just really, really,
Even with the misters.
really hot. And that's Florida can't help that. I know it's just part of life in Florida. But the interior portion of this queue is relatively long, but it's just not always long enough. So if you have to stand outside in that one, in that heat, that's why I hit number 5 on the list instead of higher.
Couple of little things to look for in the Tower of Terror queue as well. First of all, if it ever says that there's a 13-minute wait, that means that it's a walk-on. That's as low as it goes. That's their queue for walk-on because, 13. But also, notice when you're in the pre-show and you're watching the video of Rod Serling and he's setting up the episode for you just like he would on any Twilight Zone episode. And then the lightning that you see on the screen starts to coincide with the lightning you're seeing in the windows of the room that you're in. And then at the end, when he introduces the Twilight Zone, the sound from the TV takes over the room that you're in. It's these little tiny things that make it so immersive and so impressive.
And so Disney.
And so Disney. Disney just excels at these things. So just please take a moment and notice these things. They are worthy of being seen. There's also some super fun props throughout the queue here and there, and some nods to different episodes of The Twilight Zone. So if you're at all familiar with the old TV show, take a look around because you're going to see some things that look familiar.
And make sure and say hi to Caesar.
Oh, yes.
Otherwise, the attraction might not operate
Yeah,
properly.
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
On to number 4. Number 4, we're going to hop back over to Epcot because we always do. And number 4 is going to the Seas with Nemo and Friends. This is a little controversial because it doesn't have all of these interactive things that we've been talking about. It doesn't have a lot of the storytelling like some of the other ones do, but it's a personal favorite.
I'm with Sue. It doesn't have a lot of interactivity or anything, but it really does have a nostalgia factor. It reminds me of being down at the beach in Pismo Beach or along the coast in some of those seaside towns as you walk in. Then you get to look up and see the butt, because Nemo's going to go touch the butt.
Nemo's going to touch the butt.
And it's also a queue that almost always, when you walk into it, you're inside.
Yes.
From even in a 30-minute queue or 40-minute queue, usually you're still in the interior part of the queue. So this is one of those places where you're immediately in the AC. And
that gets huge points from us.
That's huge points for us.
One of my very favorite things about this queue is going from the hot, hot exterior into that blissfully cool, dark, beachy. It's just pure bliss to walk from the out to the in.
It's almost too dark, though. That's my only one concern. Sometimes when you walk in, if you're a little older eyes like me, it's hard to see when you first walk in. But once you adapt, it's beautiful in there.
That is true. I'd forgotten about that when we took Mom and Dad the last time we went to Epcot with them. And I was so excited. I was like, this is one of my favorite queues. And we walk in and my mom's like, I can't see a thing. What are we looking at? I'd totally forgotten about that. So that is true. That is a concern.
All right, number 3. Back to the studios, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run.
Woo-hoo.
You had to know the Star Wars ones were going to be in here somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Smuggler's Run, you've got the Millennium Falcon. It's the real one.
It is.
I don't care that there's one in California.
Nope.
This is the real one in Florida.
It goes back and forth.
It's weird. I don't know how you do it, but somehow it's on both coasts. But this queue is beautiful. When you walk in, even outside, you're walking underneath the back of the Millennium Falcon. Once you do get into the big show buildings, before you get into the actual grouping part where they group you into the Falcon, I should say, that area is a little warm, but it's got the switchbacks in such a way that you don't see the same thing all the time. It takes you up a level and you go across and then back over this way. It breaks the mold for what a queue has to be and still has about 30 minutes worth of queue in that one building. Love that.
And the great big picture windows that look out over the Falcon. I mean, come on. How are you going to beat that?
You see the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy.
It is amazing.
And then you get into the Millennium Falcon. Oh my gosh.
Seriously, I literally cried the first time I walked through this queue. It takes a huge chunk of my heart because you walk into the Falcon, like the metal plating on the floor sounds like the Falcon, and you're looking around and you're seeing all of the interior, and you're there. They put you in the film.
You can sit at the table in the Falcon where they were playing virtual chess.
I'm going to say it wrong, but
space
it's
chess?
Dejaric, I want to say.
Is that what it is?
And I'm probably saying it wrong, so someone correct me. Don't correct my AT-AT, but you can correct my hollow chess.
But you get to see where they let the Wookiee win. Yeah.
Yes. And you can take a picture. And here's a little tip, too. Pro tip. You do not come back through this room. So if you are a Star Wars nerd like me, you want to get your picture taken while you're in this queue. They're going to try to rush you through to group you for your ride. Don't miss this opportunity. Get your picture done at that table because it's your only chance.
It just makes you feel like you're in Star Wars.
Yes. Well, and we should mention pre-show here as well because Hondo is amazing.
The Hondo Anaka Trading Company. Yes, when you first get into the building itself and head in towards the Falcon, Hondo actually gives you kind of a rundown on what's about to happen.
Yes.
That animatronic is just amazing. It's one of
awesome.
the most technological advanced animatronics I've seen.
Well, and he makes me want to find coaxium for him. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so here's where we hit a little crossroads. We have come all this way from our top 15. We're at the number 2 and number 1 slot, and we disagreed.
Yep.
We could not come to a conclusion. So we're giving the number 1 slot, both of our number 1 slots.
Yeah, we're going to have, each of us have our own number 1.
So there's no number 2, technically. So since number 2 would have been me, I'm going to go with my number 1 first.
Go for it.
And my number 1, we're going to stay right in Galaxy's Edge and go across the way to Rise of the Resistance.
See, I thought you were going to say Olga's Cantina.
Olga's
Weird.
is great, but the queue is not.
There's no queue. Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
Rise of the Resistance. I mean, considering we are including pre-shows, this one has 2. They are Beyond Stellar, the Rey hologram. Why did I say that like I'm from Tennessee?
Hologram.
The hologram.
The hologram. When you run up a holler and shout gram.
No, it's a collared-gram.
A collared-gram. Ooh, I love collared-grams.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there are 2 pre-shows. They are both fantastic. You have the Rey hologram who is welcoming you to the Resistance. She's telling you to get off of Batuu because it's not safe anymore.
And you get to see BB-8.
You get to see BB-8 live and in person. She tells him to go prep for flight. You walk outside and he's actually in the ship prepping for flight. So many people don't notice that. Notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the next part where you're on the shuttle. Like, is that a ride? Is that a pre-show? What is it? I don't know. It's part of the queue still because you're not on the actual ride. So then you move from that into the next part of the queue, which is still fantastic, and you're getting harassed by all of the First Order members, and you see all the stormtroopers. Am I making my case here?
We're looking at you, Steven Tyler.
It is the best queue. It is beyond interactive without having any little games or anything. It just immerses you right into it, and you are in Star Wars.
And the exterior part, too, is another one of those ones that helps tell the story. Even when you're outside, the sound effects that you hear, the visuals you have of the mountain range there, the Black Spire area, is just stunning, especially at night.
And if you have the Disney Play app and you have your data pad open, you can be collecting all of the cargo as you go through that first part of the queue.
Yeah, the queue has a ton of things you can scan with that.
So many things. And you can see the backside of water because there's
one of the queues, yeah.
There's the little waterfall there. I mean, just beginning to end, this queue is spectacular. They even built in seating in the rock wall part. I mean, come on. The only thing it's missing is that flight of passage.
It's the restroom, yeah.
Midline restroom.
If you got a potty, you got a potty. Now, I agree with Sue wholeheartedly. This is probably the most interactive and gorgeous and amazing queue in all of Walt Disney World's history. However, my number one, and this is purely for nostalgia purposes, and the Disney water smell, Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's hard to beat.
It's hard to beat Pirates overall as a queue. It's been there since 1973. It's not an opening day attraction, but it is thought of and regarded by most Disney enthusiasts as the just hit you in the feels, the hardest queue of any queue anywhere at Disney. Disneyland, Disney World, doesn't matter. Disneyland's Pirates is great, even though it's so short. Pirates queue in Paris, just like Walt Disney World. You walk in through world is the Castillo de Moro.
Yes,
and
big Spanish fort.
Yeah, big Spanish fort. If you're used to Disneyland's queue, you haven't seen World, you may not agree with this. If you've only seen Worlds and you go see Lands, you're like, oh, that's cute. Like the castle, really small. But Florida's Pirates, with all of these, there's no switchbacks. It's all just wandering through the fort, is my favorite place to be at Disney World. Or I should say, in the top 3 favorite places to be at Disney World. I love actually waiting in that queue. I don't say that about many lines. I don't like standing in line. I love standing in line at Pirates.
Ditto.
Because the music, the smell, the feel, it's lit just right.
Yes.
I love it. It is my happy place at Magic Kingdom.
I will absolutely agree with that. And that's why it had my number 2 spot. And I fully agree that it should be your number 1 spot.
Well, and again, it goes back to since I worked at Disneyland. Oh, there it is.
Everybody
There's the
drink.
drinking game. Rod worked at Disneyland. But my first attraction being Pirates, it also hits me in the feels because of that. So,
and it's just undeniably a great queue.
Well, we've talked about our 15 favorite queues. Let's talk about the big elephant, the big stinky elephant in the room, the 3 worst queues at Walt Disney World.
Yep, you knew we had to.
Number 3, this one's probably going to be a little controversial because everybody loves this attraction. But number 3 for us is Soarin'. I love Soarin'. I absolutely love Soarin'. I hate standing in line for this ride.
It is the most boring queue. It's designed to look like you're waiting at an airport.
Which is nobody's favorite thing to do.
Nobody likes to do that. Plus, let's just say that we've seen some gorgeous airports. I mean, if you're going to make it look like an airport, choose Charles de Gaulle. Choose
Orlando.
Yeah.
Don't choose LAX.
Oh, it's awful. But it's just long hallway after long hallway after long hallway with literally nothing to look at.
Now, much like Indiana Jones is at Disneyland, they had to do this because when they built the attraction, it was outside of the land pavilion. So they had to build the queue long to get you to the actual ride. However, all these other queues we've talked about that are similar to that, there's stuff to do, there's stuff to look at. Now, granted, the queue does have the game that you can play on your phone.
Yeah, again, if you have the Disney Play app, you can pull it up, open it up to the Soarin' screen, and there's little trivia games that happen, and you join a quote-unquote team with other people in line. However, nobody plays.
Even the game is boring.
Come on,
people. Make it better, please.
Now, I will say the one thing that saves this queue is Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, the pre-show.
Because the pre-show is awesome and very quotable, and you can't go wrong with Patrick Warburton.
Okay, let's review. That is seatbelt, carry-on item, safety strap, fear of heights, keep your hands and arms inside at all times. Anything else? Well, yeah. Have a nice flight.
Number 2,
we're going to go back over to Animal Kingdom, and number 2 is going to go to Navi River Journey.
Ugh. I love this ride because it's beautiful inside. I hate this queue.
The queue is terrible. It is hot. It is outdoors. It is boring. There's no interactivity. It is switchback after switchback after switchback, and it's just everything we hate about queues.
Yeah, and it's just long because of the low capacity.
Yep.
Now, it is covered, And there's a drinking fountain or two. Ooh, thanks.
Yay.
But 45 minutes in that heat, in that oven, it's like a kiln in there. And I literally almost passed out one time. I just refuse to wait in that line. I will not ride Navi without a lightning lane from now forward.
Or, if it's down to like 15, 20 minutes, fine. If it's like evening and it's getting a little cooler, go for it. In the middle of the day, do not wait more than 10 minutes, which will never happen. So just don't do it.
Yeah. Just be forewarned, especially if you have kids.
And hydrate.
Yeah, hydrate. Take water with you. But kids in this queue, by the 10 minutes in, are whining, are licking poles, they're playing on people's phones.
I mean, to be
There's
fair, so are
nothing
we.
to do.
So.
Well, that's a good point.
I
Yeah,
mean,
good point.
Because boring.
And the worst queue
Yep.
of all time.
Number one worst.
Slinky Dog Dash.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing redeeming about the queue at Slinky Dog Dash. It is outside. It is uncovered. It doesn't have any fans, misters, or anything until you actually get into the actual physical queue. But it always hangs out over the bridge, around the corner, past Woody.
Plus, as cute as they've tried to make it, looking like it's part of Toy Story Land, looking like it's in Andy's backyard, all the cute toy elements, there's no reason on earth this couldn't have been covered. There's no reason.
It could have been inside of a box of some sort.
Yeah,
with
they did
an air conditioning box. It would have been great.
Oh my gosh, that would have been funny. But they did it with
Mania. How's
Mania. Right across the way they did it, and it's perfect. So, to put an outdoor queue in a ride designed for kids is just mean. It's just mean.
Well, in Florida in general, too, it's just mean.
Well, and there's no shade and there's no seating in all of Toy Story Land, so let's just start there. But this is the pinnacle of that.
Part of it is Toy Story Land in general needs shade, but oh man, Andy's backyard, Andy's mom should have been able to afford some kind of a box to put that coaster in. That's all I'm saying.
Anything. There's a few that we think might make your list that we just want to mention. They're not necessarily honorable mentions or anything. We just want to kind of talk about them real quick. Peter Pan is one.
Peter Pan has an interactive feature, and this is what we alluded to at the beginning. If you have the Play Disney app on your phone, there's actually a game specific to the queue at Peter Pan. When you get to the end, you can actually make Tinkerbell appear in a little lantern outside. It's not inside the room, it's outside in the queue. And unless you know about this, if you know, you know, you can make it happen and watch everybody around you go, oh, what was that?
It's pretty cool. There's things that you can make move around and cause shadows to appear, and there's really, really fun interactive elements with that Disney Play app, so have that at the ready. The reason it didn't make our list is because even with those interactive elements, this queue is unforgivably long.
It's the slowest moving queue on the planet. So even though it's fun to be in, it's not fun to be in after an hour.
Yes, exactly. So that was that one. The other similar one would be Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, we should do a new review of the new Pooh queue.
We definitely do.
We definitely do, yeah. Now, the Pooh queue is fun. It's got interactive elements. It's not usually all that bad because it doesn't usually get too long of a line. But it didn't make our top 15 simply because it is outside and it does get very hot.
Now, if we were people who traveled with littles on the regular, this probably would have made our list because it really is cute. But all of the interactive elements are made for tiny kids. They're not made for grown-ups. So I
think there's even a sign that says no grown-ups allowed or something.
In one part of it, I think there is, yeah.
With the carrots and all that area.
But it's very, very cute. If you have littles, this would definitely probably have made your list.
Other ones that we hear about all the time that people like that we just, for some reason, don't like would be like Test Track. It's just loud and obnoxious. And
I do like Making My Car.
Making the Car is fun. But Test Track in general, since the update they did, is just not one of our favorites. We don't usually go there to that attraction because it's an hour wait for
not a great ride. And it fell even lower on our list after we rode Radiator Springs at Disney California Adventure. Because how dare they get the best version of that ride?
Haunted Mansion, also very interactive, but it's the most complicated interactive thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, if you don't know how to play it, and I've been through that queue a million times, I have no idea. Like the little books that you're supposed to push in and they make noises, and I have no idea what to do with that. If you know, please tell me, because I'm curious.
I love if you know, but this is if you know, you still don't know.
Yeah, we know that they're there. And I know that the statues in the front is a murder mystery that you're supposed to use the clues to solve. Again, I don't know how that goes. I don't know how it starts. I just don't know.
Going the other way, though, Jungle Cruise's queue with the radio.
I love the radio.
I actually listen to the radio on YouTube at work occasionally because I just love it. It's on a 3-hour loop, and I just listen to it. Love the old music. I love the Jungle Cruise jokes. The only thing I don't like about the queue is it's just so stinking slow and hot. I know you've heard us say that a lot today, but outdoor queues at Walt Disney World are just murder on the body.
They really are. And there's no excuse for them.
Not anymore, no. and they did a good job usually at World, Overland even, in building a lot more interior queue space.
Yes.
So
now the other one that fits that same pattern is going to be Remy's.
Yeah.
Remy's Ratatouille Adventure over at Epcot. The indoor part is very cute. Again, it's just stanchions until you get to until you get to load, basically.
Yeah.
So it's very pretty. It's very cute. You have the adorable music.
Walking through the rooftops.
Yes.
And stuff. And it shows you where you become small like a mouse and then back.
Very cute.
Or a rat, I should say. And then as you're exiting, the tiles change to show you're getting big again. But it's just too short of an interior queue, I think.
Yep, too much outdoors, not enough indoors.
Yeah, there's not enough queue to actually even rate it at this point.
That was exactly. So.
And there's no pre-show. There's nothing. So.
Right.
That's the reason that one
is probably a good thing.
My last one, and this is just purely nostalgia, I'm just going to say it, the Contemporary Monorail queue.
It counts.
That was our first hotel at Walt Disney World in '83, so I'm just throwing it in there. I love waiting for the monorail at the Contemporary. Look up and see the little bear Mary Blair did. The Mary Blair. No, sorry, the Mary Bear. There we go.
Mary Bear.
The Mary Blair Bear. And the five-legged goat.
And the smell of the lobby is just amazing.
It's just being in the Contemporary.
And getting to take that little escalator, feeling like you're going somewhere special that everyone
So that one might be cheating a little bit, but I just love that one.
Hey, it's an attraction.
Anyway. So that's our favorite and least favorite queues at the Walt Disney World Resort. Tell us what yours are. Do you have a favorite queue, or did we rank these wrong? We'd love to know what you think. Before we go, we'd like to give a big shout out to our friend Andy Apodaca at the Palm Springs Linguist and Lynn and Ken at the Sweep Spot for their support and advice in getting this podcast up and running way back when. Can't believe we're as far in as we are now.
I know, it's crazy.
27? Wow. You can find both of those Disney vlogs on YouTube. A big thanks to our social media coordinator, Riley Piper, audio engineers Joey Humphrey and Paul Trett, and logo designer Evan Piper. Our theme music composer is Jason Patrick Rowan and is licensed through Con 5. And of course, thank you, Phoenicians.
Thank you, Phoenicians. And don't forget to rate, review, like, and subscribe. It really, really does help people find us. And you can find us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Epcotian Adventure is a $1,000 brunch production. Thanks for joining us today for episode 27 of the Epcotian Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And we'll see you in line.
Bye. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
So now, jumping back in. So yeah, let's just jump right in. We should... Okay.
Break.
Just leave that part out.
Okay.
Hi, Rod.
Hi.
Thanks for editing.